Okay guys, I wanted to make a video on how to follow along with Bandyrowe, especially for those of you that haven't been able to do this, okay? Haven't been able to be in choir before for whatever reason, or you're just now joining, or you're in 7th grade. So I want to point out a couple of things. Whenever you notice in choir music, if you see any kind of bracket together, like here, or even here, and they're connected with one big bar line, those parts are all happening at the same time. So here, this is the piano part, and here we have the two piano parts. This is the right hand and the left hand that the pianist will play at the same time, okay? When you get here to this section that's all joined together, these 4 staves are all happening at the same time. And what this means is, this is still the piano part. It drops down here to the bottom. And then these are the vocal parts up at the top. So here's the piano part here. And then it'll go down to here. And then over here, and so forth and so on. Well, the same thing happens. You're going to be following along with either part 1 or part 2. Then you jump down to here to the next grouping. Here to the next grouping. So this happens together, this happens together, this happens together, this happens together, and so on and so forth. This is called a system. This is a system because it's called a system because there are more than one stave or staff joined together, okay? So keep that in mind. If you are part 1, that is going to be my soprano part, okay? So you're going to be following the top staff in every system, okay? So that's important all the way through the piece. If you are alto, tenor, or bass, you're going to be following this part, this second staff right here. And you'll notice that we're not necessarily always singing at the same time. For example, if you're following along, the sopranos start out first. And what's happening on the second staff while they're singing is you guys are resting. Those are whole rests in those measures. So part 2 is resting. When you get over here to the top of page 3, part 2 is singing. The sopranos, altos, and the altos, tenors, and basses are singing. And then the sopranos are resting, and then they come back in here. So it's almost like you guys are alternating back and forth for a while until you get over to the top of page 4. That's where you start singing at the same time, and you're not singing the same part. That's creating harmony. So the sopranos are singing this top line, and everybody else is singing these dunes, holding them out on the bottom, okay? So I wanted to point that out. I also wanted to point out to you that the measures are numbered, okay? So remember, a measure, we talked a little bit about it. A measure is a section of music that's separated by a bar line. So here's a measure, then a bar line. Here's a measure, then a bar line. Here's the measure, then a bar line. And these measures match up to these up here. So these are the measure. This is the measure in each part, then a bar line. Measure, bar line, measure, bar line, and so on. Now what happens is they're counted, and if you ever run across a square with a number in it, that tells you that right here is measure 9. So we use those as points in the music to reference. So I might say, okay guys, we are going to start at page 5 at measure 41. What that means is page 5, measure 41, this is where we're starting. And so part 2 will start here, part 1 is here. Okay? So that's important. And notice there are little numbers at the bottom too. So if I say, okay guys, we are going to start at measure 30, and 30 isn't marked in your music, but you can find the closest number, that's 33, or you can look at the little tiny number below the measures. This is measure 29, that means this would be measure 30, this is measure 31 and 32, so that means I would be starting right here, okay? So you guys hopefully have this music in your music binder so that you can follow along with it. If not, I've also uploaded the music virtually, so it's up in Schoology. You're just going to be following your part, either the top staff or the second staff, all the way until we get to the very end where we have this double bar line telling us to stop, okay? Seems like there was something else I wanted to tell you, but I think that's it. So just follow. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Sometimes when first getting started, If you tend to have trouble finding the right part in the music because there's just so much there, what I would do is I would go through, and if I'm, say, part 1, I'd put an arrow at the beginning of the part 1 staff in every system. That way, my eyes always know where to go, okay? If you're part 2, however, you would put a star, or you could put another arrow or something else at the beginning of every part 2 staff, okay, in every system, so your eyes automatically know where to go to. So that's a little cheat to help you, and I do not mind at all you marking in your music. That's why you have those pencils and markers and so forth and so on. Okay, so if you have any questions about Bandyrowe, just shoot me an email or a message on Schoology, or you can also contact me via Remind.